Hi friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Kim. This is Kim Reads and Reviews, and this video is a mood reading vlog. Currently right now where it stands, it is the end of December, and I'm filming this intro, but you're going to be watching from November 20th, basically all the way to December 20th. So it's a nice month-long reading vlog, an accurate depiction of what my reading kind of looks like. I read from a variety of genres. We start off with literary fiction, nonfiction, thriller, and then a romance. I realized throughout the editing process that I didn't give a very good, accurate explanation of what the first couple of books that I'm reading are about. I just kind of jumped right into updates, thinking I was going to provide a summary later on, and I didn't. But essentially, we start off with a recent release literary fiction, and that is Worry by Alexandra Tan. We follow two sisters, but we follow the perspective of the older sister. And basically, it's just them going about life and their dynamic, and it's a very much a in-depth look into their dynamic, their relationship with each other, but also how that impacts how each of them go about their life. The other book that I start off with is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. This is a nonfiction. It's essentially a collection of anecdotes from his time in a variety of kitchens. So anyways, grab a cup of tea, cozy up in a blanket, and I will send you to a month ago. Hello, good evening. It is Sunday evening. Last night went to my brother's engagement party. It was a lot of fun. It was great to catch up with his friends that I hadn't, well, I saw earlier in the summer, but generally I don't see them very often. And it was just nice to go and celebrate my brother and his fiance, my future sister-in-law. So yeah, it was a good time. Didn't stay out too late. Karaoke did occur. Did I sing? Kinda, sorta. Did I do a good job? Probably not. However, today we've just kind of been chilling, hanging out. I did some yoga for like an hour. I watched Lily Reads. She posted a new video that was like an hour and a half long, and so I just did some yoga while watching that video, which was nice. Obviously, we did a ton of shoveling this weekend, so my shoulder muscles were kind of sore, so the yoga was very, very needed. But other than that, today I have read a little bit more of Worry. I'm about 67% of the way into this book, and I feel as though I'm at a point where I'm like, I get it. I get what's going on. I get the point of the story. The things that I was kind of liking about it at the beginning still remain the same. I do resonate a little bit with the main character, just in the sense of being like an older sibling and trying to connect with a younger sibling in a variety of ways while simultaneously worrying about everything. And I think that that's represented quite a bit in this book, is just constant worry about her sister, about her family, about what's going on in the world. There are certain things that like I do need to give some more thought to. Like, she's kind of obsessed with these like mommy bloggers online, and we get notes on that quite often, and I'm kind of, I don't know what the point of it is, but I just need to stew on it a bit more, probably look up some articles, but I do feel as though I'm ready for this to kind of wrap up. These characters aren't necessarily really like developing in any sense. The plot, there's not like a ton of it to speak of. You're just kind of following along in these two young women in their very small world, which is in a New York City apartment. I still think that the audiobook is excellent. I'm listening to it on just like basic 1 speed, not anything more than that, because I think the narrator is just doing a really good job. And I think before, when I would listen to audiobooks, I listened to it with the intent of trying to finish the book, which is the wrong intention of listening to an audiobook. So listening to it at 1 speed, and that is going really well still. And I'm reading it with my eyes, obviously, as I go. either option, and even just like tandem, like listening to the audiobook and reading the book at the same time, also going quite well. None of that has changed whatsoever. I'm eager to see how the author decides to wrap this up. So I think the next time I check in will be about that. In other news, I got the audiobook from my library for Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential. And I'm not loving it. I was hoping that I was going to, because Anthony Bourdain narrates it. And I was like, oh, that'd be perfect to tandem read the book and have Anthony Bourdain narrate it in my ears at the same time, because I have watched Anthony Bourdain's shows and love the way that he narrates the show and just like carries himself, and the way he speaks, the way he strings together words is just like so witty, and like I could hear him in my mind as I was reading it, and it was such an experience. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool if I could get the audiobook. So I did, and it's just not quite living up to what I was expecting. Like, hearing Anthony Bourdain's voice after so many years is definitely an interesting experience in and of itself, but he almost sounds very like hollow. Like a lot of his personality has kind of been retracted from his narration. So needless to say, I'm just going to be reading the book with my eyes. I've returned the audiobook to the library for whoever wants to listen to it next, but that book is still going quite well. I'm still enjoying following along with Anthony Bourdain and his cooking journey, and it's still entertaining. There's parts that are still making me laugh. It's just so well written. So yeah, no complaints there. Yeah, but we might cook dinner a little bit later. We're really into Love is Blind UK, so we're probably going to watch a little bit of that later, but we're going to take it pretty easy. I have tomorrow off of work, which I'm excited about. I have a Costco trip in my future, and then I might stop by a Goodwill and potentially like a Value Village that is also in the same neighborhood to see if I can find like maybe any books or something like that. So that's kind of the plan for now. Like I said, next time I tune in, it will be when I have finished Worry. Okay, first stop is Value Village, aka VV Boutique. Let's hopefully find some books. All right, if I look exceptionally tired today, if you're watching this and you're like, wow, in this clip, Kim, you just look like you didn't sleep very much. You just look unwell. I would be like, that's because I am. I am extremely tired today. I finished Worry last night before I went to bed, but had a lot of difficulty sleeping after I finished it. I had a lot of thoughts going through my head, a lot of confusion a little bit. I feel like I was kind of jump scared with the ending a bit. And yeah, I've been able to kind of sort my thoughts a little bit, especially after doing some Googling. And, you know, initially last night when I finished it, I was like, I don't like this book. I don't. Then the more space I kind of took from it, the more I was like, yeah, I just didn't enjoy that ending in particular. And now today, I can kind of look back on it and understand, like appreciate what Tanner did in the book and recognize, like, I think she achieved what she wanted to achieve it in the book. In the last clip, I was like, I get what this book is about. I am ready for it to finish. 24 hours ago, Kim, or however long ago that was, did not know what the book was about. Let me tell you, I now know what the book is about. This is a conversation and an example of the definition of worry. The way people worry, I think, is my interpretation of it, and the different ways that people worry and the outlets that they find to kind of express that concern, and how worry was exhibited in Jules's life in particular, as it relates with her relationship with her sister, her family, more so her sister, and just her general life itself. So that's essentially what the entire book is about. On a zoomed in, zoomed out, not quite sure which one, perspective, it appears as though it's kind of like about the sibling dynamic between Jules and Poppy. I don't love this book, but I do think that Tanner did such a good job at exemplifying sibling dynamics, especially between Poppy and Jules. And I think if you're an older sister or you are somebody who kind of has like an interesting dynamic with your siblings and you have an interesting family dynamic, you might find and appreciate certain things within this that you can relate to. I was reading it, and like I mentioned earlier, certain aspects of it were just written in such a way where I was like, I feel like this is based on her real life. Like, I'm certain of it. There's no way that, like, these are just so oddly specific, certain anecdotes. And yes, sure enough, after looking on her website, she does have a sister. So I feel like some of her inspiration for Jules and Poppy's dynamic and their interactions was probably from her and her own sister's interactions and dynamic. I will also say that there's not really any character development per se in this story, like where you meet Jules and kind of Poppy, more so Jules, because the focus isn't on Poppy per se, but Jules is a character where you meet her. She's kind of almost the same person at the end, other than what happens. Like, there is some internal dialogue or thought that she has where she's looking at things differently, but she's still kind of shooting herself in the foot in certain scenarios. So it is frustrating to read. And also at the end of the book, I was kind of like, I kept reading because I was enjoying the writing. I was enjoying following along with Jules and Poppy and just the absolute mess of everything going on. And I don't feel as though the ending was very satisfying. I don't feel like I kind of got much more from it than what I entered the book with. I think I'm going to land on probably like a 3.5 for this because I was intrigued throughout the whole story. Despite the chaos, I did enjoy following along with Jules and Poppy on their journey, specifically Jules on her journey, even though some of it didn't quite make sense to me what she was doing. But now, hindsight's 2020, things are piecing together. And the writing is very approachable, digestible. It is quick, witty. There were certain parts that I found very funny, certain interactions between her and her sister I found quite funny. But now I want to talk about the ending because that's all I could think about. I'm going to put a minor spoiler bar here. And I will say, you can skip ahead if you so desire. That's totally cool. You can probably go on Storygraph and see other people reference what the ending entails and make the decision for yourself if it's a book you want to read, knowing that the payoff might not feel as like good finishing the book. And that the ending, is a little bit of a jump scare. But when I explain it, it's kind of like, well, it shouldn't have been a jump scare because of what the book is about, So just hang with me. I will explain it. So I'll put the spoiler bar up here. Again, this book is about the definition of worry, but there are two definitions of worry. The first part of it is what you see throughout basically the entirety of the book, where it's someone showing concern about something, anxious about something, just ruminating, all those things. The very ending is where the second part of the definition is exemplified. Jules and Poppy's dog, Amy, gets hurt. And it is described. So, here's your warning. That's something that happens at the end of the book. And that's why I say, like, I now understand, because I was Googling at the end of it. I was like, why was this the ending? Why did that occur? I did not need to read that before going to bed. And I kept kind of like skimming certain paragraphs that it was being described, but it just kept going on. And And then, that's when I found like, okay, this is my own bad. This is, perfectly aligned with what her goal was. My cats are doing something. I just came home from Costco with like a bunch of boxes, so I'm hoping it's like their favorite day ever, all the Costco boxes. So I'm hoping that they are just playing with those. Anyways, and so despite really, I think what I'm trying to say is despite how I feel about the ending and what was described in the ending, like, she achieved what she set out to do, I think. Honestly, through most of this book, I was like, oh, this is a 4-star. This is a 4-star. Like, definitely not 5, but depends on how it ends. But so far, this is a 4-star. And yeah, because of the ending, 3.5. So today I just got back from Costco. I also went to Value Village because I was in the area and I was like, I'm just going to see if there's any books. Value Village is a little bit more expensive than Goodwill. I think when I went to Goodwill last, it was $2 a book. And then at Value Village, it was anywhere from like $4 to $6 for a book. Still really, really great deal. So I got 4 books, all of which were on my TBR, and then one of them was called The Hike. And I've been really kind of enjoying survivalist, outdoorsy type thrillers lately. So, well, not lately, but just this year, I've kind of dipped my toes into it and I really like it. As far as what else I'm up to today, I'm probably just going to read a little bit of Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. I'm just going to hang out. I'm probably going to watch a movie, a little afternoon movie. That sounds delightful. Anyways, I might provide an update. I'm going to try and finish Kitchen Confidential this week because when I am reading it, like I want to keep reading it. But as soon as I put it down, I have a little bit of like no desire to pick it back up. And it is literally nothing against the book itself or Anthony Bourdain or how he's delivering the story. Nothing. It's just, I think I get distracted by other books and I like to have a couple books on the go at once. And but I really need to just kind of like dedicate all my attention to the book I'm reading. And it's also a book that has been on my own shelf forever. So I do need to read it. And especially since I just went out and thrifted 4 books today. So it'd be smart of me to get that out of the way. Hello. It's been a few days since I have provided an update about worry, and I am about halfway through Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential and have some thoughts. And you know what? I realized what I said earlier in my update about this book, which was that I didn't enjoy the audiobook, but now I'm at a point in the book where things are kind of feeling a little bit dry for me. I wouldn't say it's getting to the point where it feels like a chore because I am enjoying it when I'm reading it. Its structure is very loose and it is truly like what it's described on the title. That's basically what it is. It's Anthony Bourdain reflecting on some crazy experiences while working in the kitchen and growing in the field and building on his expertise. And the things he saw, the things he experienced, like that's what it is. But it's also very non-linear in a way where he doesn't really give a lot of description as far as like what time and place, like what years some of these anecdotes were occurring. And it does just kind of feel like a collection of anecdotes at this point. Like that's kind of what it is feeling like and reading like. So as far as like a flow and like a pace with reading it, it's kind of like slowing down for me a bit, but I don't want to DNF this. I don't because Anthony Bourdain just has a soft spot in my heart. Anyways, like I was saying before, I know I mentioned that I didn't really care for the audiobook, but I am going to check it out from my library because I think tandem reading this will help me kind of get through some of the dry parts. I'm hoping that the next time I check in with you is once I finish this. So that might be a week from now, might be 4 days from now. So we'll see. Good afternoon. I have finished Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, and I have some thoughts. Where to begin? So, this is a book meant for people who have worked in the restaurant industry, specifically in kitchens. He says that within the first 15 pages. Like, that is the intended audience for this book. I have not worked in the restaurant industry. I took the retail route when I was younger. So certain things within this kind of went over my head, certain terminology went over my head a bit, but Bourdain did kind of hold my hand through that. I was able to get a good grasp of everything going on, but that's besides the point. I found that there was like a good middle portion of this that kind of read as though like, and this one time, oh, and then this other time, but without a lot of structure. So there's no dates necessarily attached to each chapter. Like, each chapter in the middle is almost like very just anecdotal, and obviously it's literally adventures in the culinary underbelly. So, each chapter is kind of like a story from his memory banks and what that taught him being in the culinary industry, and how it formed him into being kind of like the chef he was and things like that. And some of the stories are pretty crazy. And if, you have context of who Anthony Bourdain is, then, some of the stuff probably isn't going to be that surprising to you. Like, I used the audiobook to tandem read at one point, and that helped kind of maintain my attention in those sections, because it did. Each chapter was kind of the tone of like, oh, there was this one time, oh, and this other time when, without having some kind of structure like dates to hang on to. It all, I don't want to say lost my attention, because like I mentioned before, when I was reading it, like, it is enjoyable to read and I was having a good time with it. But that bit kind of bugged me a little. But everything else within this book I enjoyed. I, particularly really liked being in Anthony Bourdain's thoughts again. My introduction to Anthony Bourdain, just in general, like how I know who he is we've watched his shows, which was like The Layover. What was the other ones? Parts Unknown, and I don't think I've watched The Taste, but have watched his shows, I believe when they were on Netflix, I think it was, and really liked the way, just his personality and the way that he narrated the show and just like strung words together. Like, he is such a personality, he is. And reading this, you can tell no ghostwriter had any business in this. Like, this has Anthony Bourdain's like fingerprints in the words, and you read it like from page one, you know that he wrote this, obviously. But what I'm trying to say is that the writing itself has so much personality, and it has so much of Bourdain's personality in it. And so being in that kind of reading that kind of narration and almost like hearing his voice in my head as I was reading it was a really nice experience. He is able to string words together in a way where I don't know how the sentence is going to end, or if I'm going to be chuckling or if I'm going to be gobsmacked. Like, I don't really know, and in that way it's very entertaining. I think if you are aware of who Anthony Bourdain is, maybe you've, like me, watched his shows, haven't worked in the restaurant industry, but kind of know who he is, his story, his personality, who he was. If you're aware of those things, then sure, maybe pick this up and, kind of be in his thoughts and his mind again, and hear or read words that he's kind of strung together. Like, that's a really interesting experience after so many years. But if you're somebody who has no idea who Anthony Bourdain is and just think that this sounds really cool, I don't think that this is going to be as enjoyable for you as somebody who is kind of aware of who he is. I hate to make it sound like a those who know kind of situation, but like, it is kind of that in this instance. I mean, that goes with any kind of nonfiction, right? Like, if you don't have context behind some of the nonfiction that you're reading, like, it's just not going to land quite the same for you as it would otherwise. So, I enjoyed this for what it was. I can appreciate it for what it was. Would I say that I absolutely enjoyed this cover to cover? No, I didn't love it every single page. I would say that, like, again, the second, third
of this book I had some trouble with, like as far as enjoyment factor, but the first third and then the last third, very enjoyable. Now, when I finished Kitchen Confidential, I felt like something that has like a little bit more plot, something that I can grab onto and follow along with, because I did feel like I was missing that really good structure in that book. Again, obviously that's the intended purpose of this. Like, it's anecdotal. He's sharing stories from his time working in different kitchens, just navigating that point in time in his life. Just want to make that clear that like that was the intended purpose of this, and he did that. Now, because I was wanting something a little bit more plotty, I have a variety of books available to me through my library, one of them being The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. So I started reading that, and hooked me right away. The beginning was excellent. The way that the first chapter was structured, you hear from all these different perspectives immediately. Now, each of these women have different thoughts about being a mom and feel very differently about motherhood and marriage, and all have very different situations going on in their home. This book has a lot to say, obviously, about motherhood and marriage. And I know Ashley Audrain, I didn't read The Push. I haven't yet read it yet. I know that's the one that kind of really took off for her, that a lot of people recognize her for. I have not read that one yet. And I know that that's kind of her thing that she likes to write about, is just the nuances of motherhood, marriage, having children, that decision that women and people make for themselves all the time, and how that looks different for different people. So I got 30% into The Whispers by Ashley Audrain and decided to just kind of like put it down. It was one of those books where every time I picked it up to read it, my eyes would glaze over, and like I'd be reading it but not reading it, and then I'd have to go back and like read whatever paragraph that I just like wasn't keeping my attention. So I've decided to put that down for now, because it should be something at face value that I would take an interest in reading, but it's just not holding my attention. It's just, I get it. All these different women have the complexities going on. And, typically I really like my thrillers with some character complexity, and just like nuances to their life. And that's what we're getting. And also complexity between each of these women, and how that kind of morphs into this whole story. And there was some juicy stuff going on too. So, but yeah, it was just something about the writing just wasn't really working for me, unfortunately. So soft DNFing that for now. And then yesterday I was like, I have some chores I need to do. Like, I need to vacuum and just kind of putz around. And I was like, I'd like it if I could listen to an audiobook, just something to help me get going a little bit, I think. I was perusing Everand and saw that a Christmas guest, oh my God, why was that so hard to say? A Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson is on Everand. So downloaded that, and I'm in the midst of it. And it's pretty decent so far, I would say. I'm not quite getting the Christmassy feels that I was hoping to get necessarily, but it is keeping my attention, and it's nice just to have on in the background while I'm putzing around and doing chores and whatever else that I'm doing this weekend. We meet a woman in New York City, and she starts to read this diary from 30 years ago. And she's like, I haven't read this diary from that murderous night 30 years ago or whatever. And so then the narration is actually really decent. Like she starts to read it, and you can hear the pages like turning as she's reading this diary and recounting the time. And basically kind of at the point now where she's read the entirety of the diary. And so I'm very interested to see what this is going to transpire into, because we got time left. So we'll see how that goes. And so that's that. That's going pretty good so far. I am feeling like I'm kind of stagnant as far as what I wanted to read next. And I was kind of being drawn to reread something, like something comfortable, something that I know that I really liked previously. And I was looking at my shelves, and I saw Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to reread this. I bought all 3 books in the Part of Your World series. So there's this one, there is Yours Truly, and Just for the Summer. I think all these books are well worth all the love and attention that they get. So, I know I like the series. I know after I finished Just for the Summer earlier this year, I was like, I want to buy all the books so I can reread them. And so, following through with that intention. So I read about, I think, how many pages am I? 80 pages between last night and this morning. And yeah, loving it, still loving it. There's certain portions of this where I was like, didn't really notice that was written that way the first time I was reading it, but the romance itself, it's hitting the same that it did when I first read it. It's reading relatively quickly. It's, these two are yearning for each other. And so it's nice to read a romance where yearning is being displayed and just kind of like written about in a really thorough way. And even though I've read this before, I'm like still feeling, a little giddy that these two are developing deeper feelings for each other and want to act on them. But because they're from 2 entirely different worlds, it's just something that they're keeping in the back of their mind. And that's also something that I'm paying a lot more attention to upon reread, is how the different worlds are being portrayed to me as a reader and being sold to me as like the ultimate thing that's getting in the way of these two being together. So, really liking it, enjoying being in an Abby Jimenez book again. So, yeah, I think it's currently Sunday, so I'll finish this week. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to close out this reading vlog, is with just like a nice cozy reread. I think that sounds really nice. So as far as the plans for today goes, it's, I think, like 2:00 in the afternoon right now on a Sunday. And I was talking with my colleague earlier this week, and I was just telling her how I absolutely hate cooking after work. Like I really, finishing a day at work and then like the last thing I want to think about is what to cook, what to make. She was like laughing at me, and I'm like, it's funny to myself too, because like that's a basic adult responsibility. And my fiance feels the same. Like he, after a long day of work, like neither one of us, like the last thing we want to do is try and scrounge up an idea of what to make for dinner. She was just kind of trying to give me some inspiration for cooking. And she's like, a hack that she does is on the weekends, she'll chop up, carrots, onions, whatever, celery, the things that little things that she knows she'd have to cut up throughout the week to make a dish. And she says she does that on Sunday and then just leaves it in the fridge for when, throughout the week for when she's going to be using those ingredients. So it's kind of like one less thing. And while you got time on the weekend, you may as well do it then when you have energy. Put Gilmore Girls on in the background, So, and after all my years of cooking and trying to hack cooking to make it more approachable and just less of like a task, and less time consuming, I literally have never thought of that. So, that's what I'm going to be doing. I do have a couple meal ideas for the week that I'm pretty excited about making. So that's what we're going to be doing this afternoon. So I will tune in once I finish The Christmas Guest, and that will also probably be once I finish Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. So that'll probably be next weekend. So I'll see you then. Hi. Okay. It is the golden hour. I'm catching the rays as quickly as I can before the sun sets. But enjoy the beautiful ambiance behind me with the sun hitting my plants and things like that. But anyways, I just got home from going to a Christmas market with a friend. It was a lot of fun. Not as Christmassy as I was thinking it was going to be. It was very reminiscent of just kind of the farmers markets that we normally go to throughout the summer, but it was enjoyable nonetheless. Now, it's been, I think, a minute since I've provided any kind of reading update. I think it's been an entire week since the last time. And I thought I would be done Party World by Abby Jimenez by this point, but I am about 55% of the way through. Just had a very busy week, lots of stuff going on, so didn't get as much reading as I would have liked. But I'll start with what I have completed, and that is The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson. And I said it correctly this time, look at me. This was great. It was a great audiobook. It was a nice quick read to have on in the background while I was putzing around and doing whatever it was that I needed to do that day. Now, the thing that I liked about this book is that the ending gave me chills. It did, like full body spooky chills. I was very creeped out at the end. Much of the book is what you see in the synopsis, but the ending was excellent. I really liked the way that that was delivered. I was like, woo, like it's not very often that a book gives me chills, especially one that I'm listening to on audio. This is the second book? Nope, sorry, third book this year that has given me chills. One of them was Home Before Dark. Did I read that this year? Let me see. I can't remember if I did. I finished it in June this year. Oh, sorry, last year. Oof, time is a concept. Anyways, 2 books then this year gave me chills. One of that was We Used to Live Here, and then this one. Yeah, really liked it. Fairly quick read. Wasn't quite as like Christmassy vibes as I was hoping it was going to be, but enjoyable nonetheless. Now for Part of Your World. It's still going excellently. Is that a word? I don't really know, but we're going to just roll with it. This is going really well so far. The rereading experience is interesting, as rereading anything is, because I pay attention to certain things a little bit better than what I did before upon initially reading it. Like, I know how this book ends. I know exactly what I really liked about it when I initially read this. And now upon reread, I can really pay attention to more in depth how the author constructs the issue that is preventing these two from being together. And as with any romance book, I want to read like yearning. I want to read these two characters pining over each other. And I want to really root for them to be together. I will say that it is something that's also very interesting with rereading this is that I'm able to obviously pay attention to certain things more on second read than what I did when I initially read it. And one of the things is the way Alexis just is, I think. Like there are certain ways that she not treats Daniel, but just how she hasn't quite come to terms with the fact that she is like, she's falling for this guy. So she's really avoiding those feelings and avoiding tackling them. She's really keeping him away from her life, not part of her world. And meanwhile, he's letting her into his world, and he's really letting her kind of lead this situationship, relationship, fling that they have going on in whatever direction she wants it to go. So he's really letting her steer the ship. I don't know. Lack of better words. There was a part where her and her friends went to his inn, unbeknownst to her, because her friend had planned it. She just kind of went along, and she pretended like she didn't know him. It's interesting to read because it's like, oh, I don't like it, but I also understand it, which I think is markings of a good author when like, I can't love the way that this character is acting or be like fine with it. Obviously, I know they're fictional characters, but, you know, I think Abby Jimenez just does such a great job at painting Alexis as like a very complex person with complex things going on. Like she's trying to leave a emotionally, mentally abusive relationship, and just how that impacts how she's showing up in this situation. And maybe how she's not showing up in certain situations too. Like it's both sides. So I think, yeah, on reread, it's so interesting because I can appreciate it a lot more too. And Daniel, he is just sweet as pie. He is just very, very like a wholesome male character. Daniel's just letting Alexis steer where this is going. And he's just like, I don't really care. He's like, I just want to be there with you. I want to be next to you. I want to be in your presence. So, whatever way that looks like, if it's on your terms, fine, so be it. The physical connection is very clear between these two, but Jimenez is doing something now where she's, you know, showing me, the reader, that these two have like a mental and emotional connection. I think she's doing a good job at like making a very well-rounded case for these two to be together. And honestly, they're each other's safe spaces, and that's also something I look for in romances, to root for these characters to be together. I like when they feel safe with each other. They feel like they can take a sigh, breathe, relax, you know, and I'm being sold on that and I believe it. And instead of being told, I'm being shown those things. It's all coming together again, obviously. I look forward to finishing this and seeing how I feel about how it ended. There was one part where they kind of went through a grocery store and tried to pick out what they were going to be making for dinner, and it was like pretty cheesy, but I think with any romance, there's bound to be some cheese. And I remember, I think that was something that I didn't like love about this, is just like there was a really cheesy way that this ended, but I could appreciate it for like what it was. So anyways, we'll see how it goes. So far, the reread experience with that is going so well. So that is the update for that. I am losing light. Our golden hour is gone. The beautiful lighting that was behind me is gone. Like I said, I just got home. My hands, I think they're okay now, but they were pretty red because I forgot my mittens. And I had to walk to my car from the market that we were at, like in the building. So yeah, but warming up now, which is nice. And I just wanted to provide this update because I don't know when I'll have a chance to do it. As far as what the plan is for myself tonight, the friend that I went to the market with, her fiance, she's also getting married. And my fiance, we're golfing together, like indoor golf. And her and I went to this Christmas market. And so we were chatting. We're like, oh, do you guys want to meet up for drinks later, hang out? Like, what do you guys feel like? So might meet up with them a little bit later. And then the alternative is that we just stay home this evening, have a nice, boring, chill night in. I'll probably read this. We might watch a movie. We actually started watching Arcane on Netflix recently. Really enjoying it so far. Animation shows, I don't tend to lean towards them. I don't think I can call that show anime. I don't know. I don't know if I can or not, but I'm calling it like an animation. Arcane is an animation, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. That's okay. But yeah, we watched 1.5 episodes yesterday, and we're really liking it. I'm invested in what's going on. The plot is plotting. The animation of everything going on is really well. I like it. Anyways, there are a couple of options up in the air as far as what's going on this evening, but next time I tune in will probably be the last time I sit down for this vlog. So I will see you then. Good evening. How are you doing? It's been a hot minute, and I'm a week overdue of providing an update of when I said I was going to provide the update. I said I was going to finish Party Your World over a week ago, but here we are. That's okay. Just rolling with it. That's just the way it is sometimes, you know? However, I did finish Party World by Abby Jimenez, and I am going to land on a 4.25 again. That is the rating that I gave this book when I initially read it. It feels like a perfectly appropriate rating upon reread as well. I feel very similar to how I felt about the ending when I read this initially. The ending is just so cheesy, like ultimate cheese. Like, it's picture female main character wearing a tiara, ball gown, male main character makes it to the ball at the strike of midnight. It's very, very cheesy, and it's not an ending that I like. Enjoyment factor, I don't enjoy reading that. I'm like kind of cringing while I'm reading it a bit, I would give it like a 2 out of 5 of personal enjoyment factor. However, that ending fits with the story of Daniel and Alexis perfectly. Like, it fits with everything that's going on. It does. Which is why I can't give this 5 stars, but a 4.25 is just, it's a perfect rating for this. And that's consistent. It's aligned with what I gave it last time. I think rereading this was interesting because, I was able to pay attention to how Abby Jimenez constructed the relationship between these two, but then also like me as a reader selling me on the fact that there's this big thing that's preventing them from being together, but they are meant to be together and they want to be together. I think she does a really great job at like selling me on that. And on reread, I was just as invested in these two and seeing them both have their own happy endings, either individually from each other or with each other again, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen. That's a common theme within her romances, is I just root for both characters to just have the happy ending, that in whatever way that may look like. I don't engage with my books in this way, or, with the characters in this way, but I think, her characters and the way she writes her novels and the way she writes the romances, like, it does open doors for discussion. Like, I can foresee people questioning, if they were in Daniel's shoes, would they have reacted the same way towards Alexis? Specifically, I'm thinking of the part where she goes to his inn for a weekend, unbeknownst to her, and she has to pretend like she doesn't know him. Well, I say has to pretend. She chooses to pretend like she doesn't know who he is in front of her friends because she just doesn't want the word to get out that that's who she's seeing. So it could open up discussions. Like, I think this would be a really good book club pick, because it is kind of like, oh, well, how would you have reacted in that way? Or what do you think about how Alexis carried herself? How do you think about how Daniel reacted to that situation? And even just like in general throughout the entire story, there's so many instances for that. I enjoyed this 4.25. It's really great to reread something and give it basically the exact same rating upon reread. Sometimes when I reread my books, I am kind of like, oh, this wasn't as enjoyable as when I first read it. And then I really second guess myself. However, I'm going to wrap it up here. This is where this finishes up. You're not coming along with me for anything more. I honestly debated on extending this to my holidays and just incorporating like some Christmassy or holiday-esque type content, but I think this is pushing quite a while, because last time I started editing this, it was about 45 minutes to nearly an hour. So if you like long form content, this was the video for you. I hope you got a couple of really good book recommendations throughout this video. I think this was pretty well rounded, like I mentioned earlier. Managed to read a recent release, which was Worry by Alexandra Tanner. Got one of the oldest books on oldest is in like a book I had on my physical shelf for a very, very long time, which always feels really good. And then managed to get a couple of other books in there too, and a reread. And I want to reread more often, because when I read books that I really enjoy, I buy them so I can have them on my shelf and recommend them to others. But also I always tell myself, like, I'm going to reread this one day. So, and I don't do it as often as I would like. So it was nice to be able to do that as well. However, if you have watched to this point in the video, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. If you already are, thank you. Feel free to comment below what book you're currently reading right now, or what your reading plans are for the holidays and into the New Year's, if you have any reading plans. I know the holidays can be a really crazy time of year for a lot of people, and also a difficult time for a lot of people too. So if reading is just something that is just not on your plate at this time of year, that's totally okay too. Just feel free to comment anything. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. But thank you very much. I do hope you're enjoying what you're reading, and I will see you in the next video.